Once again, and apologies for cutting you off there a little earlier on. We were talking about what the President had to say about Eskom. In a moment, I want us to talk about the whole concept of trimming the fat, but I want us to conclude on Eskom. The President there making the promise that the Minister of Finance will be making further announcements in as far as supporting Eskom financially is concerned. How, tell me, Dr. Abedian, will this be pulled off in the fiscal space that we are in, where even the President says we can't even borrow anymore?
It's a difficult job, and the President highlighted the point that the government is in a very tight fiscal conditions, but I can only assume that technically when you separate Eskom's different divisions, transmission 100% owned by government, generation 100%, distribution 100%, they have different capacity to borrow, and that debt, the existing debt of Eskom would have to be reassigned to different sections, and within that there need to be massive investment in generation. Government cannot do it. By separating and creating 100% owned, publicly owned transmission, you then allow private investors, private generation capacity to come online at private sector cost of investment at a given price. And then generation within Eskom would have to compete with that. It will take 2-3 decades to clean up this financial mess that Eskom has generated. But the National Treasury would have to stand for a short while, maybe 5 to 6 to 7 years, subject to a turnaround strategy, subject to a trimming of the fat within the generation capacity. And remember, much of the problem of Eskom comes from the generation, not from the other sections. Therefore, there has to be an agreement, and the National Minister of Finance, I have no doubt, will technically unpack that and define the maximum support that the National Treasury can do. Beyond that, it has to be left to the private sector investment.
What are the chances of a successful implementation of this unbundling strategy at Eskom when you have so much heat that it has generated in just a few days that it's been announced? You saw for yourself the reaction from the trade unions and basically standing their ground and saying that they will not allow, in fact, many of them saying they don't support the unbundling, but furthermore, if this is the first step towards privatization or job losses, they will absolutely stand against it. So what are the President's chances of success here, or, given also that he has now acknowledged that he could have brought the other stakeholders, such as Labour, more on board before making the announcement?
Chula, the reality is that we must invert your question. With respect, your question is the wrong question. We got to ask, what are the chances that anybody else can do anything else? And my answer would be 0. Unions, political parties, opposition, anybody who wants to do it differently, is there another option? No. And therefore, it's not that anybody has left anybody out. They can politic and posture and procrastinate this pain, prolong it for the economy and for themselves. But if the unions or all those who oppose, they do not come to realize the commercial imperative of doing this so that we can come to a sustainable energy policy for the country, so that the economy can grow, so that the jobs can be protected, etc., etc. Any procrastination will lead to more job losses, to more businesses going bankrupt, to more households to be in the dark, including the working class. That is the issue, not the other way around.
All right. Finally then, Dr. Abedian, I have to ask you about the announcement from Sibanye-Stillwater, the Section 189 process that is now confirmed and is set to get underway. Some 6,000 jobs on the line there. What are we to read in the broader context in which government, the Cyril Ramaphosa administration, has been talking about interventions in various sectors to try and save jobs and seeing mining as a sunrise industry? The sun is setting for these 6,000 employees.
That's right. That's a good, clear example of if we procrastinate doing the real structuring that we need in our energy, in our infrastructure sector, in our policy formulation, more and more thousands of jobs will be lost. So we need to wake up and smell the coffee, the serious issues of job security and job losses we need to arrest. And the way to arrest it is not to toto in the street, but to sit down and say, what are the obstacles? How do we make our businesses more competitive? How do we make our investment environment more friendly? And then jobs will be a little more secure and more new jobs will be created. We need to turn the debate around on the positive side, not to fight the inevitable.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Iraj Abedian.